National Fire Escape Association. We'll talk to us today. We appreciate him coming in from Detroit. No, where was it?
I've actually been in all those places with Boston.
Boston.
Boston guy.
And
Just make sure that
just
I'm
so
from
y'all know,
Boston.
Gabriel is the one that kind of helped get him here, and we really appreciate that. You taking care of that for us, getting it all scheduled, a lot of help. And I think it's going to be a good class.
And just to prove that I'm from Boston, I parked my car outside. And that's, right after this, I'm going down to the harbor. And so that's our end of, that's as far as we're gonna go with the accents. So today, normally I teach this class, and this is a 6-hour continuing education course. Not today, today I got about an hour and a half, right? So I have to bring the machine gun with me, so I'm actually gonna go taka. So a lot of this, what I do is I really rapid fire through it, and I really tell you where everything is, how you're gonna find it, answer a ton of your questions, so it's very quickly through this, but then answering a lot of your questions that you may have. So that's how we're gonna do it, so that way you can understand just what's out there. But this is usually, so if you have a bigger conference once a year and you wanna bring me in, this is usually done in 2 parts. Morning part for about 3 hours, lunch break, and then in the afternoon, for those that can't stay the full 6 hours, we do what's called a downtown walk around. We'd actually go to downtown and start applying what you learned first thing in the morning. Because we're able to show you how to look at fire escapes from the ground. You don't have to get on them anymore. You can actually see what's wrong with them. And fire escapes must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So that's what we're going to be teaching. Okay. So I'll do it. You're going to be the time. What time do we have right now? And you want to go to 1:30? Is that what it is?
Somewhere between 1 and 1:30 to be fine.
1 and
If
1:30.
anybody needs to leave, they know they can just ease out.
Sure.
So,
And so in about 45 minutes, I'll just take a little quick little break, and then just to give you guys a little stretch, and then we'll get right back into it, finish it. But the one thing I want you guys to understand is just by taking a look at this picture tells a lot. Fire escapes have to be built at 100 pounds per square foot. So any properly fabricated and installed fire escape will never hurt or kill anybody because it's made to handle 100 pounds per square foot. They're so robust that they're actually double the capacity of whatever you could physically put on them. So if somebody says you can't party on them, you can't have any people on it, these are made only for firemen. When you look at a typical 5x5, that is 5 times 5 is 25 times 100 pounds, that's 2,500 pounds. So we've had our engineers calculate that out. So everybody, in order for us to reach the 2,500 pound limit on a 5x5, I need 2x2 people, 10 feet tall, weighing anywhere from 600 to 700 pounds a person. You got any of those here? So that's it. So right now you can have, to give you, now let's bring it down to firemen. People in the building. If I have an average 150 pound person in the building, and we have 10 of them, that's only 1,500 pounds. Can I get 10 people in the residence to fit a 5x5? Now let's go down to firemen. Firemen weigh 300 pounds after they weigh 200 plus 100 of gear. Can I put 5 300 pound firemen in a 5x5? But that's what it's so there's still an extra 1,000 pounds. So if anybody ever tells you that a fire escape failed because people were partying on it, too many firemen were on it, these things are built to, you can fill it with firemen, people, anything you want. You can have people on piggyback, and these things will never fall because they're built already beyond the capacity of what you could fill with live people, just to make you feel better. So what happens is these were built 75 to 100 years ago. Some of them are 50 to 75 years ago, but you're looking at an average age of 75 and they've never been inspected or load tested. So there's your problem. That's it. They've never been inspected. So what fails is not the fire escape, but the fasteners in the fire escape have expanded. That's it. Not the steel, not the bars. I mean, yeah, you got some rot here and there in certain corners because of accumulation. The gutter's been dropping water on one location, yeah. But when you look at a fire escape that's built, everything is at least a 1/4 inch thick. But you put 2 1/4 inches next to each other and you put them in a corner, you put water on it all day long, those 1/4 inches will rot to nothing. If you leave it alone, okay, a fire escape needs to stay wet in order for it to keep rusting. So you take a piece of rusted fire escape, you just put one out in the Arizona desert, you take the same piece of the fire escape, you bring it out to the West Coast, or the East Coast actually. In 5 years' time, the East Coast one will rot to nothing, but the one in the desert will stop Even though it started with rust, it stopped, because if you don't have moisture, you don't have rust. So in every connection, if you can stop water from getting back into that connection, that fire escape will have a longer life than it had in its first time, because every fire escape ever built never had connection, silicone in its connections. Were never sealed. Just paint was the only thing keeping. And when they heat up in the summer, they do this. When they cool down in the winter, they do this. That cracks the paint, and that's what allows water to get into a connection. It was never primed or painted. So, you have books in front of you, right? So what we're going to talk about is where everything is. Okay, so I teach this class coast to coast. I've taught from Seattle to San Diego, Chicago to Texas, Maine to Florida. So let's talk about what you should have in that book. This is the quick cheat book of everything ever built out there. Oh, that exists out there. So if you have a piece of paper you want to write on the back of it, let me tell you where you can go and just take down information of people who already have existing programs. The oldest one that I've been dealing with, who's over almost 15 years now, is Seattle. They brought me in when 4 people almost fell to their death. So all these times people bring you in, is always somebody that died, somebody got seriously injured. So Seattle started it. So if you want to go to seattle.gov, they got a program. It's not the best, even though they were the first. They started and then they stopped. The best one, Portland, Oregon. I've had meetings like this in Portland. I'm probably working on 10 years now. So just be aware, whatever we're going to discuss today is the start of a 3 to 5 year adventure, because everybody and his sister is going to fight you. You know, and nobody wants to talk about the bastard child of egress. And so you're going to piss off everybody you can ever imagine. The owners who fund the campaigns, the mayors, the councilmen, everybody. Because, you know, some people have buildings that they have 1, 2 buildings. Some people have 10, 20 buildings. Some people have 100, 200 buildings. Some people have 1,000 buildings. And if you bring them a fire escape issue that could generate, you know, $3,000, $13,000, or $33,000 worth of work, they're not going to be happy with you. So be aware that, so this has to be long term. This is a safe structures initiative. We're not fixing fire escapes. We're just verifying that the fire escapes are safe structures. So you can actually ask that all fire escapes get tagged. So you go to Seattle, you go to Portland, Oregon, they put in tags on their fire escapes. You got a white one, gives you all the information you need. It's permanently affixed 7 to 10 feet off the ground. If it's in repair, it's got a yellow one, and if it's imminent danger, it's got a red tag on it. So just like anything that's out that has an issue out there, you can tag out. So let's start off on the book of all the things I'm going to talk about today. This right here is a repairs and procedures guideline. So we can send you the PDF or the Word document of this. You can strip it of all the information it has and put it in yourself. But that tells you what you do when you inspect, what you do when you repair, and what you do when you're painting it. Because the lead law has changed on this. The EPA since 2010 says that all fire escapes older than 78, which is every fire escape you probably know, has lead paint. So no welding on it, and there's anybody that's going to scrape and paint it must have an EPA renovator's license, right? Let's talk about the EPA. Well, the EPA, as I just mentioned, that's where you're going to get the code associated with that. So now people who are going to be fixing fire escapes can rebolt fire escapes. They can't weld on fire escapes because they have lead. But that was the preferred method. We call them the welding witch doctors. That's another thing we're going to discuss today. Why welding is not an appropriate way to fabricate fire escapes, and it's also not an appropriate way to repair a fire escape. Because 99% of them are built with bolts, so guess what you fix them with? Bolts. Open a bolt, take it out, take the rust, put the bolt back in, you're done. For 50 to 75 years, the welding witch doctors have been there, and they just weld the rust right in position. So it's good that day. A year later, it snaps the welds. These are the first confidence tests I've designed. The first confidence test in Seattle, they didn't have it. There was never a checklist for fire escapes in the U.S. So I created one, and this is the first phase of. So if you go on to Seattle.gov, you're going to see one there. Is it the best? No, it's got a lot of holes in it that rats and cats and cockroaches went through. So we have the latest, greatest, which is in your book that you handed. You have an actual confidence test. It's 25 specific questions. So it's one of the loose documents that was given to you. But this is generation 1. And like anything, we keep improving. So we have, as an attachment, we have the latest, greatest. I'll go over that later. We have typical examinations. With today's digital technology, you must take photos of all your fire escapes. So when you guys get any report, no longer a single piece of paper that says the fire escape is in need of attention, it has deterioration, rust, jacking. Nope, I want to see pictures. All right, so there's pictures and documents. There's plenty of documents that you guys have. As you know, when you go over certain size building, they need construction control, which means it must have an engineer of oversight, some design professional overseeing. So a lot of times these fire escapes need engineer oversight, because if you leave it to the owner and he's got 2-3 prices in front of him, $3,000 from the witch doctors, $13,000 for a half witch doctor but half do it good right guy, and then you have $33,000 from the right guy to do it because it comes with a 15-year warranty. What do you think the owner's going to pick? Right? So right now you introduce the oversight. The oversight now takes a lot of responsibility away from you, because the oversight, that engineer, that design professional, or that other acceptable to the building official will have to sign off on a witch doctor, a half witch doctor, or a fully licensed and insured vendor. So by putting that back on, you make sure that every fire escape, in order for it to be certified, there is a process, and the process starts out with a technical report. If there's no technical report and oversight, because you don't got time to watch these things, you're not gonna accept a repair on a fire escape. Okay? For 100 years, fire escapes have been a concern, and I have a document here from Cincinnati, and it says that in 1885, the fire marshal was concerned that a lot of his buildings didn't have second means of egress out. So it's been a concern for over 100 years that fire escapes were going to be a great answer to a lot of these buildings that had one staircase in it. Okay, so this is how they've all been built. They haven't changed in 100 years. Every fire escape built today was built the same way 100 years ago. Instead of rivets now, they're using bolts. And a lot of fire escapes are now welded fire escapes, even though you see some, but if you don't maintain and galvanize that welded fire escape, guess what happens to the interior connection of a painted steel fire escape that you just welded? And they didn't treat the connection. Water's gonna get in there, it's gonna rust it, it's gonna snap that weld from the inside out. But if you're gonna have a welded fire escape and it's been galvanized, now it's been protected. So I'm not saying you can't weld fire escapes, I'm saying it's not the preferred method. Because when they heat up and cool down, they're always moving, and welds don't allow too much movement. All fire escapes must be complete to grade. So we gotta make sure that ladders that end 9 feet off the ground must be complete to grade with a slide or a cantilever. Fire escapes over rooftops must have a continuous catwalk system. These are all codes that have been around for 100 years, but a lot of people have cheated the code. They changed the roof out. Did the catwalk ever get back there? Nope. Do the people know it's in the corner now that where that ladder goes to the ground? Let's talk about the code. Can you build a new fire escape today? New construction. So remember that today you cannot build a new fire escape on new construction. Can I build a new fire escape on existing structures? Yes. So the reason why a lot of your structures are being converted is after you've exhausted all means of putting 2 staircases inside, all pre-existing buildings have the right to use a fire escape as a second means of egress once you've exhausted all means of putting the staircase inside. So some of these mansions are going to get saved and turned into condos if you allow, because the code allows it, a fire escape on the backside to answer the egress, because there's no way with a centralized staircase can you have a second stair show up somewhere in the building. It's physically impossible. So does the Historical Society let you raise the building because you couldn't find an answer? The answer is fire escape. So no new fire escapes on new construction. You dig a hole in the ground, no fire escapes can ever show up. But you have an existing barn, church, mansion, anything that has that needs an answer for a second means of egress. If you can't find the place inside, so you still have to try to exhaust all means of putting it inside. A lot of times the most economical way of doing it is outside through a door, 7-Eleven, Rise and Run all the way to the ground. Okay? We're going to go at the end of this, we're going to tell you how to do it. We're going to say what's the best way, and you're going to piggyback. So you're not going to start a fire escape, team that's going to go out and look for fire escapes. You're going to tie this into sprinklers, building permits, any examinations that you have. You're going to add this to the checklist. That's all you're going to do. By adding it to the checklist, people can't close a permit, can't close an activity on a building until they provide you with a certificate for the fire escape. That's all it is. So you're not ordering fire escape inspections. You're asking, where is your certificate for the fire escape that you should have been doing for the past 5 years, if not 50 years? And that's how you're gonna find these, one at a time. So if somebody pulls a building permit, the building inspector, if he's coordinated with you, he's gonna ask for the certification before they start working. Because OSHA requires, which I'll show you, that you must have a fire escape certified before any work can commence. So we're gonna give you all the bullets, all right? So let's talk about all the other cities. Seattle.gov, Portland, Oregon. They probably have the best system in the country for you to look at. Portland, Stu White, fire prevention, okay? You have in LA, Reg 4, LA Reg 4. They have the best one. You want to make money in this system? Nobody in fire prevention can do anything in the city of LA without having a license through Reg 4. So if your sprinklers, your fire escapes, your anything to do with fire prevention, I have to give them, it's every 3 years, you have to give them $3,000. Every time I submit a report, I have to pay the compliance engine $10, $20 to submit the report, because the compliance engine, I don't know if any of you have heard of compliance engine, and basically the whole thing is self-funded. So my license, I have to pass with an 80, and then I have to, in order to get my license, which I have to renew every 3 years, and to get my license is $1,000. And it all goes into fire prevention. They also monitor your exams, so that every time you stop putting stuff in, you have to notify them 2 days in advance that you're about to do an inspection, so that they can witness the exam. They may never show up, but they always want you to tell them when they're going to be somewhere. So that's a great place to go. Cincinnati's got a new one that just came out, the new fire escape program. Philadelphia has a knee-jerk reaction one. Philadelphia, because of an incident that happened 5 years ago, now wants every fire escape in Philadelphia, in the greater Philadelphia area, inspected by July 1. How soon is July 1? Cincinnati didn't have an incident, a death incident, so they want all fire escapes done by July 1 that are 100 years old. Next year, all 75-year-old buildings by July 1 that are 75 years old. Then the year after that, all 50-year-old buildings. Then after that, they want everybody just to get all your fire escapes done. So you can either react to a bad situation, or you can say, hey, we got to get ahead of this. And this is what happened in Philadelphia. I taught about 50 or so. I taught the Liberty chapter of L&I, which is the licensing and inspections. I taught about over 50 guys in that class. And I told them it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. 6 months later, this occurred. But it took them 5 years after they went through the whole lawsuit. Them and everybody else associated with the whole scenario. And all of a sudden, their knee-jerk reaction is they came out just in March, February, March, they said all fire escapes must be inspected by July 1. It's an impossibility. You can't. We're doing it, but they're going to start extending it, because it was just too much. Because not every engineer knows what they're doing or how to inspect it. So let's talk about new fire escapes. As you can see, you can still build them, but be very clear that they only go on pre-existing structures, or you're replacing an existing structure. And and no ladders. So no fire escape ladders allowed. If you have a pre-existing one, you can maintain it indefinitely. It's a pre-existing rule. All pre-existing structures can be maintained as of the date of its installation. So we're not raising railings to 42, we're not taking bars down to 4. It's a pre-existing structure. We must maintain it as part of your fire code. I maintain that fire protection equipment as of the date of its installation. You can't force an upgrade unless there's a change of use or some other kicker that converts it. You want to? I think there's got 3 more people that came in. I think we need one more. There's 2 or 3 guys that came in.
Two came in.
Yeah. So a lot of this, and look at the tags. Imagine every fire escape in your city has a fire escape tag. So the first step is identify the fire escapes. You don't have to inspect them. Just start getting, you may want to speak with the city of Philadelphia. They are having people actually chime in to the city of Philadelphia and identify their fire escape on a map. Say, hey, I have a fire escape in this, and there's this map that's going to have these little stars of where all the fire escapes are at. So the city of Philadelphia, as part of this knee-jerk reaction, is having that done. Yes?
Do these tags go directly on the fire escape? or
Yeah,
are
they're
they
permanently
located-
attached. I'll show, I have a picture of one. So they're, is that recording, is the recorder on?
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure. It's hit the red button. Sometimes you don't see the little red light. Because I'm gonna put this online for you guys after this. But they're 7 to 10 feet off the ground, permanently attached. They have to be made of a material that doesn't fade in the sun. And a lot of times, they get it done by a print shop. Okay? And that's usually the cost of whoever's doing the project to put it up, not you guys. Okay? So, and this is now in play in Seattle, in play in Portland, in play in the Boston area, not in Boston proper, but in some of the cities that have adopted, because if you wait for the state to adopt things, what happens? So a lot of it is grass fire. You do it, it starts from the bottom up, okay? So, but this is what happens. If the fire escape is in imminent danger, it gets tagged red. If it's under repair, it gets tagged yellow. And if it's in good orders, because a lot of times, as you guys know, if you've been training the fire guys who are out fighting fires, they're trained by the guys with the gray hair. They teach the new guys coming in case of fire, don't use the fire escape. That's what they're taught. Don't trust them. Don't trust these fire escapes. So if that's the case, something went wrong. Well, what went wrong is 75 years have gone by. They had no choice, because two things a fireman worries about: getting killed in a fire and getting killed by a fire escape in a fire, because they do collapse and do fall apart.